Some crazy details have been revealed about Demidov's future position with Montreal as some unexpected quotes were taken from the Montreal Canadiens behind-the-scenes draft video. We're going to get into Demidov being a center long-term for Montreal, plus some more details revealed about the trade that got Montreal Michael Hage at number 21 and how they had some other things lined up if things didn't go their way. That plus little note on the Yaroslav Askarov trade coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And we're actually going to start with Askarov, Jesse. Now, we were talking about him a lot, mostly before the Patrick Laine trade went down, and we were saying how the Habs could make a swing for Askarov because, it's hard to get a goalie with this much pedigree, and despite us both kind of saying, yeah, I don't know, I don't really think it's the right fit, we thought that Kent should have at least called, and, well, according to Elliot Friedman, that is exactly what happened, and if I bring this up here, he said not sure yet on the particulars, but it sounds like Yaroslav Askarov is being traded from Nashville to San Jose. I'll show that trade in just a second, but he said heard a lot of different possibilities over the last week, including Montreal and New Jersey. But it's the Sharks that get him, and here's the trade that they ended up doing. It was Askarov and a third-round pick and Nolan Burke for David Edstrom, the 32nd overall pick, previous 32nd overall pick, decent goalie prospect Magnus Krona, and a first-round pick that's a top 10 protected from Vegas. Jesse, all in all, that's not that much to give up for Askarov. Again, it's like some decent value. Of course, a first-round pick, and I'll go back here. A first-round pick, another former first-round pick, some other stuff, but do you think Montreal was still in on Askarov after the Laine trade? Do you think Kent Hughes is maybe trying to go 2 for 2 in a week and try and land him?
He was doing his homework for sure, as he rightfully should. And Kent, we know, loves to kind of put in the work that he needs to kind of get the information that he needs to make an informed decision. That being said, it's like, we know that it's really important to Kent Hughes and company to give space to players they feel are playing well, to kind of reward them. In fact, that's what we did for the Montreal Canadiens, rewarding them by getting Patrick Laine, and also for these players coming up. Like Jeff Gordon has said, it's like, if we feel like a player is playing well, we don't want to feel like they just can come to training camp and feel like they could never get a job because that place is already locked up. Like, if they have players that are playing very well, they want to feel like they have an opportunity for them to be in the role that they should be at the NHL level. So you have to feel like Jacob Fowler absolutely played into this. If Jacob Fowler is not a part of the Montreal Canadiens, absolutely Kent Hughes is making this deal today with the prospects and the picks that we have available, the plethora. I'm sure that Kent Hughes could have really outmatched this if he really wanted to. But that being said, like, I just like Jacob Fowler so much. If he wasn't such a winner, if he wasn't playing so well, I could absolutely see making this move. But I think with what we have right now, given what we have in the pipeline, I think that Kent Hughes did well to maybe wait this one out.
Yeah, and we still don't know what's going to happen with Primeau. And, guys develop in very different ways. Like, you could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have that motivation, you don't have the right support system, things can go awry, right? So the Habs have Jacob Fowler, who has some of the best confidence I've ever seen in a goalie. Dobesh had a fantastic second half to the year, and we're going to get finally a full year, hopefully, of Montembeault and Primeau. So there's a lot of questions still yet to be answered in the Habs goaltending situation. Hey, I think this is actually a fantastic move for San Jose, by the way. Now they have the top goalie prospect in the NHL, according to a lot of places, the same place that ranked Jacob Fowler number 6 recently. And they have the top forward prospect in Celebrini. And then they also have, multiple other guys like Sam Dickinson, like many others. But regardless, we're not going to spend too much time on that. What do you think about that Askarov trade down below? And what do you think about the fact Montreal was involved in it? But we're going to move on, Jesse. Now, we all, I'm sure everyone, or at least almost everyone watching, has watched this behind-the-scenes documentary from last night. And there's a couple things that we wanted to pull out. Like, they weren't super long moments. There were definitely storylines, but there were some specific things that we wanted to highlight. And the first one is Michael Hage. Now, of course, the story with Michael Hage is unbelievable. Of course, his mother was absolutely shocked, and just such a feel-good story. I mean, it was really a bit of a tearjerker, honestly, if you watch that and you hear the whole story and all this stuff. But the thing about Michael Hage, Jesse, is the Habs were huge on him. And I got a quote here from Nick Bobrov. There was a lot of things there praising Hage and how they were willing to trade for him. And Bobrov said the question is not whether we stay at 26. The question is, do we get to 21 to have a chance at Hage? And to have a chance at another move. It's Hage that we're chasing at 21, and we probably have, hedging it, a 20% chance that he's there. Jesse, this was their guy. He was their guy at 21. He's the reason they made that trade from 26 up to 21, and they thought they weren't even going to get him. And you can see in the thing, Kent was on the phone saying, hey, if our guy doesn't slip to us, we'll make another move. They were ready to ship another pick out if they didn't get Hage. He was their guy. He has the incredible story, and I just thought this was maybe my favorite part of this entire documentary.
For sure. Like, there's something you said about somebody that has like a true, sincere character like Michael Hage does. And a big reason why they wanted to get this guy specifically targeting, right? And we knew that he wouldn't be available in the around the 26 range, right? We had been talking kind of, pre-draft where we thought Hage would go because he's an interesting player, right? But we thought, okay, no way by 26. But while we were at the live stream for the draft, when the Habs did trade to get that 21st, when you asked me, Josh, the first player that came to mind now with that 21st position was Michael Hage, right? For the obvious capabilities that he has, that offensive talent, as well as obviously the character that we're seeing as well. It seems like it just meant to be to get this player. And obviously, he was super honest just in his interviews and everything else like that. And I'm a big fan of this player.
Yeah, he's unreal. And I remember during the draft, we thought for a minute it might have been Yzerman, but I think we both were like, yeah, I mean, Hage, we had done a video on Hage just a few days before, and we were like, there's something about this guy. I mean, I know some people wanted Boisvert, some people wanted Hage, but the fact that Montreal was so high on him is absolutely incredible to see. So again, go watch this segment, go watch the whole thing, but the Hage thing in particular was just really, really awesome. But the big thing to come out of this, Jesse, is, well, there was a lot of Demidov stuff, of course, and I wanted to start with something a little comedic before I get into this detail about probably how they see him in the future. I wanted to bring up a Demidov quote that he had. Now, he had a couple funny quotes in this thing they showed his interview. He's like, yeah, I played against Slafkovsky at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. And then to quote Demidov, he said, huh, he lose. I won. Like just saying, yeah, he beat Slafkovsky. But here's another thing. He said, so Gordon asked him, he said, you're there at 5. Are we crazy if we don't take you? Demidov just simply said, yes. Like so confidently. So I thought that was funny. But the big thing, Jesse, and I wanted to bring up a couple quotes from some Habs scouts and various staff members, including Vinny Lecavalier. Vinny said, I think he's the smartest player in the draft, which is huge praise from Vinny Lecavalier. But then we had other scouts say, we watched the 5 games he did play at center, and it was very impressive. His defensive mind was great. They went on to say how he doesn't take shifts off, even in the defensive zone. His stick play is good. And he said, with Demidov, you get a potential number 1 center. Now, Jesse, while they did talk a little bit about, playing him on the wing, stuff like that, it certainly seemed like there was a good bit of talk about him playing center, something that we've seen in the preseason now, but not something I guess I've really been actively thinking about with Montreal, with Suzuki and Dach down the middle. We're just like, well, it's a natural fit for him to play wing, but I think there's a world, like, imagine if Suzuki ends up being the number 2 center to Demidov. Like, is that a real world of possibility here?
Well, it's always nice to have options, and why this is a possibility for Demidov is this because he plays so well defensively as well. Like, he's so aware. The scouts, when they're kind of analyzing him pre-draft, they're saying, like, this is somebody that just picks people's pockets. Got that active stick. He's supporting his D-man in the defensive zone. He's just doing everything right. And they didn't even feel like they'd have a chance for him at 5th overall. A lot of them thought that absolutely he would be gone, because when they're kind of comparing these players, and that was kind of the concept for this draft, was to take 2 players and to kind of compare, and which one do we like the more out of these 2, right? And for Demidov, we don't get to hear about the other players they're referring to, probably, right? But like with Demidov, they feel that this is an NHL all-star. So they made it quite evident that he has that game-breaking, that dynamic ability that separates him just from being like a top 6 player. No, this guy is an NHL all-star that can possibly play the center as well in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Now, my gut reaction at that point, where they bleeped out Marty LaPointe saying the player's name, the way they described him made me think it was actually Tisha Ginla. I could be wrong, but it just kind of sounded that way. They said, he goes in, he's got a mind for the net, and he's got a goal-scoring mind, but whatever it is. But yeah, the thing is, they see Demidov as like, no, you can kind of plug him in wherever you want on your top line. Like, this dude has that superstar potential. They asked Demidov himself, do you see yourself as a franchise player? He's like, yeah, I would say so, right? Like, he's so confident in himself. He's apparently the smartest guy in the draft. And Jesse, one last thing that I wanted to say that Demidov himself said, they asked, well, what kind of player do you think you're similar to? Something we've heard before, but he's like, yeah, I think I'm a mix between Kaprizov and Jack Hughes. Like, whoa, Hughes, those shoulder movements like that. And then Ken said, who else does that? Lane Hutson. And Demidov was like, yeah, I watched his highlights. I think, we can do that together. He's a defenseman, I'm a forward. Like, not only to have all the scouts behind you, but to be very aware of your own ability. It's rare to be aware of how good you are, to see, like, to mirror NHL players in your own skill set. I thought that was amazing as well, and it seemed like the Habs brass agreed that, like, this dude has something special with his deception, and that's something that they really sold big.
Yeah, for sure. We know the talent is there, and he was even able to meet Lane Hutson after being drafted. It's interesting that those 2 were able to kind of meet, right? Because, for sure they're going to be spending a lot of time together in the offensive zone with Montreal. And one of the things that both of them do so well, we saw in Demidov's goal yesterday. I even commented on him, the comparison to Lane Hutson is like, these guys can dangle. These guys are incredibly deceptive and just talented, but the type of players that totally feed off each other. So I don't know. Are we seeing the early chemistry between Demidov and Hudson, right? Because if these guys could pair off, right, you might have, I know Hudson's got a lot of work, but he could be a number one D-man. Demidov could be that number one forward on that team. So nice to see them getting to meet each other so early on.
I mean, if those two end up sharing the power play together, there will be a pile of broken ankles in the corner. It's absolutely insane what both of those guys are going to be able to do. I will link the video down below. If for some reason you haven't watched this behind the scenes video yet, please go watch it. It is a fantastic video. Some other teams have done it too. I actually watched Columbus's, and watching them convince themselves Cayden Lindstrom was the right pick, which it very well could be. I think Cayden Lindstrom's going to be amazing, might I just say. But I'm also very thankful that they didn't take Demidov out of Montreal's hands. So let us know what you think about all this down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for supporting us every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.